everyone, Cathy Zielske here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I've got a 2-for-1 card project, or as I like to call them, two-fers. Two-fers. See what I did there? Anytime you have a die that cuts both positive and negative, you have got 2 cards waiting to happen. And a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the pot. Is it glove? I don't think that's right. Irregardless, stick around. My 2-for-1 card projects coming up next. Anytime you can get an extra card or multiple cards out of a single pass through the die cut machine, I think that's a good thing. And today's card projects might look fancier than they are, but honestly, these are pretty easy to do. You do not have to be a great painter. All you have to do is save the positives and the negatives. So let's take a look at the products I'll be using today. So I've got the die here, and I also have a background cling stamp that matches the pattern of the die. And the die comes with the shadow layer and the chunky flower. I've also got a bunch of Distres inks that I'll be using today, and a water brush, and a little bit of Versamark and some embossing powder. This is the sparkle stuff. Plus, I'm going to be pulling a bunch of other things as we go. So without further ado, let's get into the project. Step 1 is to trace this die onto a piece of Tim Holtz Distres watercolor cardstock. I just do this so I have a guide to follow in which to paint. Again, you do not have to be very good at painting. That is what I love about projects like this, right? Distres inks are my go-to right now for any sort of watercolory type project because they're just so easy to use. So I've got them smushed down, and I am going to work here in a reverse rainbow order. Well, I'm just starting it with the purple. I'm going to build my way out. And I've got a little piece of paper towel off to the side, so I just squeeze out the water until it comes clean before I pick up the next color. The thing that's so great about this is it doesn't matter if it gets messy or if the colors run together. You want them to kind of do that. I actually think this has a is it a geode look, like the rocks? Let me know in the comments, because I think I know what I'm saying. I'm not always 100% sure, though, what I'm actually saying. But that said, this painting is so easy to do. Just work your way around, create your array, your radius of color, and when you're done, you're going to have this lovely, beautiful, colorful little area to die cut. And again, that outline just helps me know where I'm supposed to be going. So I'm filling in all my colors, and you can go back in and punch up anything or go over anything that you think needs a little more color. But what I'm going to do is just set that aside to dry and move on to another part of the card project. Now this is actually for the second card, and this is the cling stamp, and this has that same chunky flower. So I'm taking my insert pad out of my MISTI, putting the cling right inside the MISTI, which is how I like to use background stamps. I'll place my cardstock, take a little piece of low-tack tape, this is purple tape, pop that down, and I'm going to pick this up with the MISTI door. This is actually a tip that I use all the time. In fact, I've got this little 5 tips video, and I'll put a card up top here if you're interested. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to run my embossing magic over my cardstock just so that my powder sticks only where the Versamark ink goes down. And then what I do here, I bring in my little Swiffer cloth and I press the cardstock into the cling stamp. It's just a really nice way to get a beautiful impression. And then I'm going to sprinkle this powder all over the image. And this is sparkle powder, and it's really hard to see on camera, and even when I emboss it, you're not really going to see it, but it's an embossing powder that just sort of has a bit of sparkle. And honestly, any sort of embossing powder would work. You could use white, you could use clear. The idea is just to create a panel with a little bit of that pattern texture. And again, this is for my second card project, but while I'm waiting for that other piece to dry, you know what? You know what they say? I don't know what they say, but I'm getting it done. All right, there you go. You don't really see the shine. Well, a little bit. It's pretty, trust me. Now that this panel is dry, I'm going to line up the die right onto the colorful piece, tape it down, and then I'm going to run this through the die cut machine. I'm going to go back and forth a few times just because the Tim Holtz cardstock is a little thicker, and I really want to make sure I get a beautiful, clean cut. But once I go back and forth a few times, I'm going to pop that out, just double check it on the back. Yeah, that looks good. Next, I'm going to pop out the die, but I want to keep everything in order just so that when I glue these into the outline piece that's coming next, they stay in the right order so the blend all looks correct. I'll cut out some of these out of some Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. And there's the outline piece, which I'm going to save for card 2. But now all I'm going to do is take these little guys and my little, I need a new pick-me-up stick. It's kind of lost its stick. But you kind of get the idea. All I'm going to do is work my way around, right? Fill in all of these little colorful pieces. And once they're all in, I'm going to take some of that magical press and seal invented by Jennifer McGuire's husband. Thank you. It's great for trivia night, craft trivia night. I got a plan for that. Now I'm going to score my card base. This will be a US A2, top folding, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches tall. And you know me, I like to tape those card bases closed so they stay closed while I'm adhering my elements. Next, I'm going to put a bunch of foam squares. Now this is the thin foam squares. I'm going to delicately place them all on the colorful pieces on the back side. This reminds me of the game Operation, right? Just all those little pieces. But once they're on and the backers have been taken off, I'm lining that down right on my card base, just kind of burnishing it down with the old bone folder. And then I will peel this back. And didn't expect the center to come out, but that's because I forgot to take the backer off. No problem, gonna stick that back in there. Oh, saved the day. Now all I'm gonna do is wiggle off that outline. It's gonna pop right out, and oh my gosh, can you even stand it? Never done this before. I've seen Laura Basson do these all the time, but I have never done it. I'm so excited. Okay, next, I'm gonna cut out a sentiment from these pre-printed sentiments using one of my sentiment labels. And what's great is when you cut this out, it's not gonna hurt the other sentiments, so you can cut these out a strip at a time, and it gives you these perfect cuts, and I love that. And I love that these are pre-printed, no stamping needed. All you gotta do, trim them down. So I'll bring them to my paper trimmer here, line up the furthest most letter to the right, and cut. See that with the guard? It gives you these perfectly centered sentiments if you line it up this way and cut. So now I've got 2 different sentiments to use for my cards. Lovely. Now these are printed on white cardstock and they have a white core. So if you don't like that look and you want it to look like black cardstock, just take a dark colored pen and color in the edges. I always use my Copic T10 marker. It works great for this. Not needed, but just a little extra step. And now to glue down the sentiment. Now I've got my thin foam squares on here, but sometimes what I like to do is also put a little liquid adhesive on. The reason is because it creates a little bit of wiggle room time when you're placing things down. So if you don't get it perfectly lined up, you can kind of wiggle it, get it straight, and then press to adhere. It creates like this little floating hydroplane effect, and then it dries perfectly. But isn't that great? It's so simple. I'm not adding anything else to this card. So happy with how, I didn't expect it to look that good, I'll be honest with you. Now for card 2, I've cut a vellum layer and I've got my extra white layers, and I'm gonna glue all of this together. So I'm using my E6000 spray glue. This is a new glue for me that I've been using more and more instead of spray glue. It actually works really well. The only thing is that you have to give it a little more time to dry. So once you have your layers starting, I always put a brick on and just let it sit, give it a few minutes, and then proceed with all of the other layers. But it works great. Remember our embossed panel? Well, I trimmed it down a little, and I'm going to add some sticky tape runner to the back so that I can take a piece of fun foam and put that on the back of the panel for some dimension. It's really nice and a cheap way to pop up your panel. But next I will use liquid glue on the fun foam. Just add that down, because then when I go to adhere this to my white card base, again, that glue gives you a little bit of time just to wiggle it into place to make sure everything's straight. And once you've got it where you like it, you just press it down and it will glue beautifully. Now I had planned to do vellum and I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to figure out how to tape it down and cut really thin foam tape. And you know what? When in doubt, just go with solid cardstock, and I knew this is gonna look really good. So I've got some thin foam squares on the back, popping that right into the center, and I love that you can see that very subtle repetition of that same design. Love it. And then I'm popping up the "You Got This" right off to the side. I thought the offset looked nicer than having it right in the center. And then to finish this card off, I thought it would be cute just to stick a little jewel right smack dab in the middle of the flower, put a little liquid glue in, and pop in that jewel. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it, but you know, I don't know. I think it's pretty cute. So there is card 2. So easy, right? I mean, it looks fancier than it is. Does that make sense? I really think it does. I think both of these cards, when you lay them side by side, they look fancier than they are. And I think anyone could do this. But again, it's a great example of that two-fer. So the next time you've spent time painting or ink blending and creating this beautiful colored space to die cut, make sure you get both the positives and the negatives into your card making, because then you have 2 cards to send. And that, my friends, that's a good thing. Thanks so much for watching today. I would love to have you become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And if you do subscribe, be sure to hit the gray bell below the video so that you don't miss the next time I post. Here are a couple other videos that you might be interested in watching. Thanks so much and have a great day.